All right, we're here. Doom Drop Podcast. We're back, Shun. Sorry about this. I guess we got to tell the audience we just did about 10 minutes of recording and the audio was messed up for Shun, so that's my bad. We just wasted about 10 minutes, but
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. We were
audio
really
audio
good.
issues audio issues are always a bitch, man. How many times have you
Yeah.
been in some sort of cast or working with someone and there's audio issues? It feels like basically every time I go to cast with somebody or do BSL or anything, there's always some sort of
Yeah.
audio issue.
Yeah, I had a funny moment when I was casting BSL recently of Noken, and it was the Chinese players playing, so it was a Chinese observer that we were just watching the Chinese stream, like using their feed. And there was obviously like sometimes there was issues where like the feed would just cut out and it's just like a still screen. And like at one point I just ran a joke and I was like, please stand by while we try to connect you, and saying stuff like that, and like
Mm-hmm.
making AT&T jokes.
But that was like the video feed was messed up.
Yeah, we had to keep switching to using Noken's perspective because for some because we were using a Chinese observer's point of view
Oh,
for the stream, and I guess I'm not sure if it was zero lagging out or if it was the Chinese streamer lagging out, but yeah, we were getting issues with that.
it's always hard to connect with Chinese servers, man. So rough
Yeah,
because I gotta go through VPN just to connect with you. It's one of the most annoying parts about living in China when I was there is that you just couldn't do anything without getting on a VPN. I never even knew that when I first went to China way back. Um,
well, I think if I'm not
mhm,
mistaken, that might be to do with you need to do pretty much anything in China. You need like ID. So, like, say if you want to download a game on the Play Store, like you need
mhm,
like your Chinese ID to even be able to do that, right?
yeah,
I think so. I guess that's a good like track and trace for the CCP having that feature. But I
mhm.
guess as far as the average Chinese citizen is concerned, that's probably a big nuisance, and also doesn't allow you to really do anything without being watched very closely.
Well, yeah, and if you're in China, you're not able to get on Google or Facebook or
Right.
Instagram unless you have a VPN. Doesn't matter if you have ID or not. I didn't know that when I got there for the first time. I had a really hard time contacting my family because it's not like they're also advertising VPNs. You know, you got you got to find somebody else who knows about it. Or
Yeah.
I did. I had to find somebody who knows about um how to get a VPN and how to use it,
Well, there's
and
even
it
like
took me a while.
dedicated hacker group. There's
Hmm.
even dedicated like hacker groups that like help people in those kinds of countries be able to communicate with the outside world in a secure way. Like, say they're a whistleblower or they're in danger or like they want to get out of the country, or something's going on and they want to be able to communicate without their government watching them. Like, there's even like hacker groups dedicated to giving those kinds of so-called oppressed people like the tools in which to communicate freely in the world without like censorship or like yeah.
Right. Well, if you use a VPN in China, it's actually against the law. So you can actually go to jail for that.
Which
Pretty
is kind of
sad.
crazy to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't really it's funny because if I talk about this, people will be like, "Oh, I have a VPN. I live in China. It's fine." But the thing is, that's how the communist government works is they allow you to get away with breaking the law in a lot of different areas and circumstances, but they know that you're doing like they have information knowing that you're doing it. They kind of let you get away with it until you become a nuisance to them, and then they enforce the law. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
as long as you're not doing anything that we don't like, you can break the law. But as soon as we don't like what you're doing, jail, straight to jail. You know what I mean?
But then they have, but then they already have
The
the
dirt, they got the
reason
dirt.
to
Yeah.
jail you. Yeah, they got the dirt. So it's like in a way, it's like how you would run like a criminal organization. Like you'd
Mm-hmm.
want dirt on each other. You know what I mean? You'd
Right.
want that on each other, if anything.
Yeah. It is a criminal organization, but let's not delve too deeply in there. We'll get lost in the weeds. Um, yeah, let's talk a bit about StarCraft then, because I've been doing a lot of research and videos and stuff recently about StarCraft and thinking about like what's the next big video that I want to put out. What do I want to try to focus on, and is there actually space for someone to do videos like that? You know, like
Right.
I was taking a look around at some other content that's coming out, like other content creators who are making videos about StarCraft. It's mostly StarCraft 2, and that seems to be where a lot of the views are going. And there's like just a small like niche uh creator community of people making StarCraft 1. Like have you ever seen Oxo? He's like one of those,
Oxo.
yeah, he's like one of those creators. He's a Korean, I think, and he does like a few kind of feature videos talking about, you know, different historical moments in Brood War. Has like 500 subs, something like that, but he's been making videos for quite some time. Um,
No, no, I
yeah,
haven't seen this content. You have to link him to me.
sure. There's like Jinjin as well. You know him obviously. There's
Yeah.
like a few other creators. There's one guy who does only content related to the way that the game engine works in StarCraft 1. I can't remember what his ID is, what his name is on YouTube, but there's like just a few content creators scattered around, and they seem to have like some sort of like semi like minor ish success. And I've obviously done quite a few videos, but my biggest video of all time has been about StarCraft 2, right? And the differences between StarCraft 2 and Brood War, which is a little bit depressing.
Yeah, I mean that is kind of unfortunate is what it is. I mean, it does have a bigger scene. You could argue that StarCraft 2 in terms of its previous success is dying, but obviously it still has a quite a large player base and quite a large fan base still. So I think it still will dwarf the numbers of the Brood War community quite significantly. But you were telling me before about how you want to do like more of these feature length videos,
Mm-hmm.
feature videos, but also try to make them palatable for a wider audience, like keeping them shorter length, like more like 5 6 minutes rather than 10 plus minutes. And we were talking about how like that kind of shorter form content is ideal for people that aren't like completely invested in you as a content creator or what you're talking about necessarily yet.
Right. Some people who are more interested in just the gaming uh, sphere, or just part of the gaming sphere
Right.
in general, rather than directly related to Brood War. Maybe they can still get something out of like Brood War related content. For example,
Right.
my Pro League video that we were just talking about, um, that I'm putting out tonight, uh, about how these Pro League players are making their own tournament as streamers and putting it all together themselves and making, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year just doing it completely on their own, and like how that type of tournament, or that like format of tournament could be used in other games, particularly like older games that don't really have a good thriving tournament scene, don't have like big prize pools anymore to support pro players. Maybe they could also support pro players by having like a tournament like that instead. So
Yeah.
that's sort of like, it's related to StarCraft Brood War, but it could be viewed by a wider audience, and maybe it'll bring more interest into Brood War. Do you know what I mean? That's my ultimate goal, is to keep Brood War alive, you know, to keep it going and to like support it as a community member. But I also want to do well for myself, you know. I want to bring more people in. I want to like get more uh success. Yeah, it's like a
Right. Well,
it's a hard thing to do.
yeah, no, I admire that. I both commend the effort of wanting to like keep the scene rejuvenated, but also like build yourself. Like, yeah, I think that makes sense. But I guess the issue you're having right now is like you've had some growth from your Brood War content, and you've surpassed 5,000 subscribers, but now you're starting to hit that ceiling a little bit, and you're wondering, wait a minute, I need to keep finding ways of growing here, because like I don't want to stagnate too much from only relying on the Brood War community for your viewership, right?
I think yeah, the Brood War community. It's not like I've topped out on the amount of Brood War viewers because I can see other content creators like Artosis Tasteless,
Right.
these big creators who have, you know, huge amounts of viewers. Um, Definitely, there's more room to grow here, but uh, there's just so many more people in the wider gaming space, of course. And I would also not be too hesitant to like branch out into other RTS if there was like another great RTS that I was really into coming out in the future. It would be interesting to like put some of that content in as well. It's just yeah, I don't know. I want to grow faster, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I want to get bigger, of course.
Well, as a content creator, it can be difficult because you can kind of get pigeonholed into like one style or format or one like particular scene or game or what have you. And
Yeah,
sometimes your audience will also not like it when you branch out and do other things.
right.
So you have to kind of like, it's like being typecasted as an actor almost. You have to kind of put in effort to not be typecasted so
Mhm.
that people get you and they understand that this is your agenda and like this is the kind of thing you're gonna be doing. And if they can accept that, then it's like, yeah, fine, you're not gonna get as much resistance. But some streamers and some content creators have a lot of pushback from their audiences when they try and do that. So maybe it is better for you to do that sooner rather than later, just so that there's less pushback and that you can like establish yourself and not get typecasted too much. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's why I wanted to do more feature videos, and at the beginning of the year, I told myself, I gave myself a goal of putting out a feature video every month. But here we are in May, and it's my first feature video of the year. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I got kind of slowed down because I started streaming a lot, but I'm kind of cutting back on that. Um, we were doing like 5 days a week, 6 days a week streaming. We're like doing maybe like two or three this month, and we got a feature video out. So I like what you're saying. I think it's better to like branch out a little bit sooner.
Hmm.
And like feature videos, I think are the way for me to utilize some of the skills that I've learned from doing a lot of video editing. And to enhance those skills, to like continue to hone that and also bring people into the Brood War space and grow the audience beyond just regular YouTube or Brood War cast viewers. Do you know what I mean?
Well, you can't really utilize your skill set through your other regular content with like your casting, because most of that is the emphasis is on the actual casting itself, not
Mm-hmm.
say your editing ability or what have you, or your ability to create a narrative or like,
Mm-hmm.
what have you, or digest something for the viewer. So, yeah, I feel like I've seen the Pro League video, and it's really really good. It's concise, it's informative and entertaining, and it's to the point. It's 6 minutes long. It's a lot of videos you'll see they're like 10, 20, 30 minutes, really long winded, really padded out content. He's talking slowly. There's moments of like dead air where it's just like fancy transitions or like some interesting or so-called interesting content on the screen for your eyeballs. But yeah, like I actually find it really hard to engage with it when it's like that. But when it's like concise and there's a good pace to it, where it's like almost like a rapper, like there's a good flow to the
Mm.
content. And it's like once you get that sort of bouncy rhythm going, it's like even someone with like ADHD and really bad attention span's going to be able to latch on to what you're doing if you're doing it like that.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the hope. We can get people to the end of the video. Um, that's always the struggle, man. With every YouTube video, is like most people tap out in the first 15 seconds. Like
Yeah.
almost uh, depends on how good you are, but even if you are amazing at making a video, most people are gonna tap out before, or like 30% of people will tap out before 15 seconds, even if
And
that's great. That's like a good
yeah.
level.
And a few
So,
more, and a few more will tap out as the minute progresses as
hmm
well. Like, yes, that's the issue, right?
yeah. So,
But it's a
mhm.
harsh reality, but that is how humans judge things. Like, say, if you wanted to judge 1,000 books, like it'd be really difficult to like read every single book page front to cover, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what you could do is say read the first 50 to 100 pages of every book, and that would still give you a reasonable indicator of like the writing style and what have you of the author, to actually kind of judge them a little bit. And that's kind of like videos, like they're only gonna, they're gonna judge you, right? Humans are very judgmental. They're gonna take like one look at your video, and within 10, 20 seconds they've made their fucking mind up if they're interested or not.
Yeah, and the thing about YouTube as well is that there's like a recommendation bar right next to the video. So the moment people click on a video and the new video loads in, they like immediately their eyes go to the recommendation bar. And if there's something more interesting than what's on the screen at that moment, they're just
Yeah,
as likely to like click the next video instead.
humans are fickle
Oh
creatures,
yeah,
man,
it's
for real.
you're competing with everything in the recommendation bar for the person's attention, so it's a tough
You're,
game.
as a content creator, you're
Mm,
now big enough that you realize that the reality of the situation is it's a war for attention.
mm-hmm,
It's not about money. It's not about clickbait per se. The clickbait's only good because it's a battle for attention, right? It's
yeah.
just part of the wider struggle. And that's why people like XQC are so successful, because he's obsessed with that. He's obsessed with that I want all the eyeballs on me kind of way of
Mm,
thinking. You know what I mean? And
mm,
they understand that. They know how to be goofy enough to be engaging enough to keep the eyeballs on them in every moment of their streaming and their content or whatever. Like they understand that engagement needs to be there always. There needs to be a
mm,
reason for you to be fucking looking at me.
mm. Well, it's funny, it's a war for attention, and StarCraft is a war of attention, right? You're splitting your
Mm,
attention between all different
mm,
types of things that are going on, your macro, your micro, the drops that are coming in, the harassment that's going on. um
right.
I immediately drew that correlation when you were talking about the war for attention.
I think it's a great parallel and a great analogy to that. Yeah, like they are like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, it's your day, your whole day is a war of attention, right? It's like, what am I going to put my attention to? Am I going to put it towards a video? Am I going to put it towards a Netflix series, or am I going to put it towards like building my relationships,
Uh-huh.
or progressing my career, or working on my hobbies? um
It's almost like your brain, in the sense of your memory banks and
mm,
what you think about on a day-to-day basis, is you can think of that as ad space, and all the companies are fighting for ad space. So like the
mm-hmm,
Coca-Cola company, right? Like they're gonna like they've been around for such a long time that they're like nestled in our subconsciousness. You know, like there's certain things that happen which will trigger you thinking about Coca-Cola or something. You know what I mean?
mm,
And that's what they're essentially doing. They're fighting for that ad space in your mind, your
mm,
attention.
yeah. They're fighting for your dollars as well, trying to get that money.
Mm.
Um, yeah. Have you talking about StarCraft and fighting for your attention? Have you seen the new StarCraft 2 versus StarCraft 1 mod? I know we talked about it before, but let's talk about it again. StarCraft 2 versus StarCraft 1.
Dude, that's wild. Like, it's not balanced in the slightest, obviously, because it can't be, because you were talking about the macro side of things, and yeah, the units are just so wildly different. But I was saying that in a way, you could use that kind of platform as a way of like balancing the skill disparity between two players. Say if you've got like a really good Brood War player against kind of like an average StarCraft 2 player, well, maybe they'll be slightly more evenly matched per se.
Well, it's insane how evenly matched it felt when I was watching the AGSL, the Africa TV, um alternate GSL, or like where they were playing the mod with all like the pro players. There was like, who was playing Action? No, not Action. Who was it in there? No, Action was in there. Um
Mini was in there.
Mini was in there, Soul
Sulky.
Key, TY, and then Classic and Dark.
Yeah.
Um and they were playing a bunch of games, and it went back and forth really, really heavily. A lot of the wins were on the side of Brood War. It was kind of crazy. And then you go ahead and watch like Artosis versus No Regret, with No Regret playing StarCraft 2. It's like impossible to win. And I played a bit of StarCraft 1 Zerg versus StarCraft 2 Terran on my stream, and it was insanely difficult. Insanely difficult. They
Well,
just have so much macro with the mules and injects and that. They can have so much just kind of muscle behind their army, and then there's the liberators are so incredibly broken, and
yeah.
the drop ships are insane. It is really kind of mind-blowing just to think about, like, if in Brood War you could have drop ships that were medics that would heal the you know
Yeah.
what I mean, and they come out within like just a couple of minutes. It's wild.
TVP doesn't sound fun, yeah.
No, it's like, instead of having, a 5-minute Marine medic push coming at you, it's 5-minute Marine medic with dropship. It's kind of crazy because you could just completely go around all of the Zerg defenses.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to think about. And I mean, I guess I could make the joke that the reason why the Brutal players were still taking games with them is because it's a harder game and that they're better players and that they're able to do multitasking and that sort of thing that the StarCraft 2 pros can't do.
Well, there was StarCraft 1 pros who played a bit of StarCraft 2, but then of course their StarCraft 1, like, they don't maybe necessarily know
How to
how
abuse
to
the StarCraft 2
use it as
units and
much.
whatnot,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So there was a bit of that going on, and then there was also that sort of uh, kind of pro gamer, really early game pressure stuff that came out as well. Like, they were hitting like these really, really sharp timings with, a very early few dragoons and a reaver, and like trying to bust open a StarCraft 2 player. And the reavers are crazy in that as well. Like, they
Mm.
do so much damage, of course, but the scarab connects insanely well. It never misses, so it's really, really strong and fast to use. So they were kind of abusing that and getting some good value out of it, and taking some wins. So there were some of those mechanics that made it a little easier to play Brood War, but overall it felt like the StarCraft 2 like macro engine was just so much better.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see the games being like way more StarCraft 2 sided the longer the game goes on, just
Mm,
because of how crazy the macro features are for those respective races. Whereas Brood War actually like maybe has a few power spikes in like the early to early mid game where
mm-hmm.
maybe they can get one over the StarCraft 2 guys.
Yeah, but just
But but
just imagine for a second, like, a StarCraft 2 Terran versus a StarCraft
mm,
1 Zerg. Um, First of all, you've got the metavacs, right? So as soon as you get out on the field, there's going to be metavacs. Of course, at the beginning of the game, you can get lings out a lot faster as the StarCraft 1 Zerg player, but there's supply depots that go up and down, so they can block you off, right? You can't get in, and you
right,
can't bust because you don't have uh
failings.
banelings. You don't have banelings, so um the StarCraft 2 player comes out with the Marine and Medevac. You can't defend with sunken colonies because they can just go
Mm,
around it. You don't have queens, so you can't shoot down the um Medevacs, and then so they can harass you. You have to build a lot of stuff to defend against that, and then liberators can fly in at like 4 minutes and set
and you
up,
can't even
and you
have
can't.
Scourge to deal with that.
You have to have um either a spore ready, or you have to have a spire done by that time, and it's really, really close in the timings. Like, I was doing one base to get to spire fast enough to deal with the liberator.
No,
It's
that
kind of
feels so
insane.
bad, man, having to play one base though.
Yeah, you have to get Scourge because you can't handle Metavacs just picking stuff up and flying around everywhere, or Liberators
Mm.
coming in and just shutting down your economy instantly. So yeah, it's an interesting experiment, but I definitely don't think it's balanced. Maybe, you know what I was thinking, and I actually wrote this in their Discord. I thought that it might be better if the StarCraft 1 units returned 8 minerals instead of 5, to make it like more balanced with the macro. hacks that StarCraft 1 has or StarCraft 2 has.
That'd be interesting. As long as it doesn't completely break the early game, that might be an idea.
Yeah. I don't know what it'll do, but could be interesting if they just keep messing around with it. They might hit like a cool medium, they might hit some sort of level
I
where
mean, to be honest though, like they were struggling to balance StarCraft 2 alone. You know what I
I
mean? So
know, I
like, how
know.
are they going to balance StarCraft 2 versus StarCraft 1? I mean, have fun with that. If they can figure that out, I'm going to be like, well, how did you not manage to fix StarCraft 2 all this time?
Yeah, well, maybe they'll get it to like a more playable level and we'll have like more tournaments and stuff. That might be something fun if it really becomes like a popular thing in the future. Like it's hitting like a spike of popularity right now, of course. A
Yeah.
lot of people are watching videos about it and stuff. Um
Well, they
but
did recently make the balancing of StarCraft 2 community led.
yeah.
So there has been a spark of interest back into StarCraft 2
Yeah.
because like there seems to be a little bit of life breathed into it from that sense. So
Mhm.
maybe there's going to be a bit of an uptick in eyeballs on stuff, that kind of content.
Yeah, that might be a place to kind of grow into possibly if they really um if the interest like picks up and stays in that StarCraft 1 versus StarCraft 2 mod, it might be fun to grow into that area, but um I don't know. It seems really broken right now. It seems like crazy broken, so
But
I
also
yeah.
the lack of jankiness, like say the Reaver Scarabs connect
Mm,
well, but also inversely, like say Mutalisk Micro, like I'm guessing you can't abuse bio with muters quite as
no.
easily.
You can't, and vultures are terrible. They don't micro at all. No, they don't
Oh,
slide, you know what I mean? So
right.
you can't like flick micro them. They just kind of stop, turn, and fire, and then move, and then stop, and then turn. You know what I mean? And shoot, it's really, really
Uh,
bad. It's
yeah, that
god
doesn't sound good.
awful. So yeah,
Eesh.
yeah, it's got a ways to go. They need to add some of those things in for sure.
That's interesting concepts. Like the
Hmm.
fact that it's even remotely balanced where both sides can win is interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's not something I ever considered as like a possibility that they would do that. Like, of course, they wouldn't do that. That's just silliness.
Yeah.
Yeah, but somehow they've kind
Con-
of put it together. Have you seen the uh Devour or
What?
not Devour, Defiler in that
Oh
mod?
no.
Oh, it's so
No.
silly. It looks like a lobster. It really looks like a lobster, Shin, I'm
I mean,
telling you.
I have to say, like defilers are the most crustacean of all the Zerg units.
Maybe. Yeah, it's it's frankly just ridiculous looking. I want to bring it up on screen right now. I don't have uh, image of it though on my computer or anything like that. It's very silly. We'll have to play it sometime,
Let's,
Shin. Let's do it sometime. We'll
yeah, sure,
play
sure.
and mess
And
around.
bring
We'll
up
take turns
maybe for
playing StarCraft 2.
maybe for the viewer, like just post edit, bring up a little picture of it, or something, so they can see it.
All right. If I remember, I'll do that for sure. Otherwise, we'll play it. They can check out
Right,
the stream or something.
sounds
Um
good.
yeah, I might do some videos on that. That'll be interesting. I don't know where to get replays for it though. A little bit tough to find a replay for that. It's already difficult enough to even find a game. It's kind of crazy how few games there are in StarCraft 2 if you go into the game. I haven't played it for like 7 years, but I went into
Mm,
StarCraft 2 to play the mod and there's almost no custom games. Kind of wild. There's like maybe, 5, 10 custom games open at any given
really?
time. And you go on Brood War, uh, US West, there's more. And then if you go to Korea, it's like
Oh, there's
10 times
loads.
more. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
wild. Really wild.
there's some. Yeah, the community that play UMS maps are actually pretty popular in Korea in Brood War still. It
Yeah.
always has been that way. Like there's always been like a dedicated UMS community in Brood War, but
Mm.
still seems like alive and kicking even to this day.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go in and you can get a game anytime for Brood War. 1v1, 3v3, some UMS.
Which
It's
is wild to think about.
yeah, it's just wild actually. I still keep playing it too. I get in there and play like cat and mouse or like 2v2s or like just silly shit sometimes, poker
Yeah.
defense or whatever. Every once in a
Yeah, same.
while, every once in a while someone recognizes me and they're like, "Are you that guy?" Like, yeah. It's weird. It's weird that I'm in here, yes, but I do like these
Yeah.
UMS sometimes.
Since doing the KCM with you, like I got a little bit of that as well.
Oh, really?
People, if like only if I'm on my other account, because usually I'm on like Sausage Monkey or something, so I
Mm,
won't get it. But if I'm on like an actual Jean account, then yeah, I've gotten that a few times. We're like, "Are you the guy that Curse was saying?"
that's funny. Yeah, I can't remember the first time that happened to me, but it was kind of crazy. I mean, we're like almost a little bit famous in such a small subcategory of
Yeah.
such a tiny game. Like even Artosis, I mean, is not crazy famous. You know, he's famous for us, but he's not in the wider
Right.
zeitgeist actually that famous, right? But he's still like 100 times more famous than us.
Oh yeah,
It's just
absolutely.
funny. It's funny the levels of fame and like the yeah, the sort of weirdness of just like people knowing you. Um, I can't imagine being someone like Brad Pitt or something like that. Can you imagine?
Oh,
Oh
please
my
no. Can you
gosh.
imagine? Can you imagine like not even be able to like just go anywhere?
Yeah, like everybody knows you from a million different things. They recognize you as soon as they see you, and you're just looking at strangers all the time. It's so
If you
weird.
do go outside, you have to essentially wear a disguise, like a hat, and have a different getup, like have a beard if you're usually clean shaven or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know what I mean? Like,
Wear a wig or something like that.
yeah,
So
fuck
weird.
that, dude.
So
Nah, I'm not
weird.
about it.
I don't know why they don't move to like Japan or something. You know, move to China or something. Somewhere where they don't
Like
have
because
any idea where what you know.
because they look the same as any other white person to them.
Sure, sure. That and also like they don't watch the same shit, right? Like most of them they don't watch that shit, so they probably won't even
Yeah, it's
recognize
true.
you. That's actually like a big thing for YouTubers. Like really famous YouTubers will move to Japan or whatever because they don't watch English YouTube. Maybe they'll watch like
Yeah, good point.
Hollywood movies, and they might notice like a Brad
Right.
Pitt or whatever. But like a PewDiePie lives in Japan, and like fuck, nobody's gonna know who he is, right? Like
I mean, imagine a
almost
couple
nobody.
might recognize him, but the most people, yeah, like his chances of being recognized like go down from like 80% to like 1% or something. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. So it becomes much more bearable, I'm sure, for him to be living over here instead of back in his home country, especially his home country. Holy crap, I can't imagine. He's really popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw him doing some like rock climbing content recently or something. He looked pretty ripped in that.
I think he just does whatever the hell he wants, man. Pretty much
Yeah,
anything.
he's living the dream now, dude. He
Yeah.
can pretty much do whatever he wants. He can coast on his success, unless he makes. I mean, let's be honest. The guy survived some pretty big scandals as well, right?
Mm,
Like he is not much that can happen now that is going to really upset. Unless it turned out he was like I don't know. You'd have to do some pretty bad stuff, I think, to get
yeah.
like cancelled. Yeah,
And even then, I mean, he's got enough money. I'm sure that
yeah.
he's coasting like on interest, whatever interest is occurring off of what he's got banked up now. Sure he
Yeah,
can
I'm
live
sure
pretty
he's
well.
been, and he's not stupid. He's probably got like money in crypto, money here and there. Like he's got money everywhere. Like his portfolio is probably diverse as anything.
Yeah, I mean, you would hire someone like a finance guy to figure that shit out if you had that much
Mm,
money, I'm sure.
yeah,
Doesn't have to think about it. Just hope he doesn't. That's always like the scary thing, though, is if you get that wealthy, trusting somebody to put your money in investments.
yeah,
Like you get like a business manager or something like that. There's so many stories of them just like taking all your money and just
Well, it's
yeah,
kind of like
fucking off.
that's just kind of like happens in like any kind of, especially I think the most notorious is probably boxing, like
Mm,
because like it's a perfect combination of like a fighter that doesn't really care about the finance system or how economics work or anything. He just wants
yeah.
to fight and be a champion or whatever, and then you've got the greedy manager that's just going to take advantage of that. It's like the perfect situation to do that kind of corruption, right? And you see that in the wider world in other capacities as well.
Well, I think YouTubers, the new one, the new boxer, you know, like
Yeah,
these YouTubers who are making huge amounts of money, they don't know what to do with it. They might be just some like mukbanger dumbass, like doesn't know anything. They're
right.
like, what do I do with all this money? Well, you give it to me and then I invest it for you. And then they're freaking gone. They've taken it all. This type
Yeah.
of shit. Yeah,
Or they tell
that's
you, or they tell you that they put it into some crypto that got rug pulled or something, and like make
right.
it seem like your money got lost or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
disappear your money.
scary. It's, I mean, yeah, I don't have those problems. I don't have to worry about that yet.
You don't have those kinds of first world problems yet.
Yeah, don't have those type of problems yet. Still got a long way to go.
Yeah, you got a long way to go before you can get that kind of drama.
I'm looking forward to having those problems.
Yeah, right. I want to have those kind of problems of having too much money.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of people don't know this. I actually have a finance degree, so I don't know. I probably just manage my own accounts. Figure that shit out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time would be the issue, though.
Yeah,
Or
true.
at least, but the literacy of knowing the finance would help you in avoiding being like manipulated or taken
True,
advantage of.
true.
But
Yeah.
you'd still
Hire
need to
someone.
delegate. You could oversee it though. You could
Yeah.
oversee the accounts.
True,
Just
true.
have it delegated, right?
Yeah, that would make more sense probably. Just spend my time thinking about how to make the next video rather than thinking about what to do
Yeah,
with the money. That's for sure.
yeah.
Well, we can always dream, Shun. We can always dream.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm just trying to stay alive right now. Just trying to make it happen. Hustling.
I, I thought it's interesting because you said about how like
Mhm.
these people like they don't really know what they're doing, they just get so big, like almost too big to handle themselves. But
Mhm.
one thing I thought was interesting, XQC's approach, as far as I'm aware, I don't know if it's still the case, but what he did was he basically gave his YouTube channel to his editor and basically said like the money you make from here is yours, just then he's incentivized to like put out the best possible content and edits on that channel because it's all him. Like he's making all the editors making all the money. It's just that but XQC's face is all over it, right? All
Mm.
the eyeballs are on XQC. XQC's still making crazy bank from his stream and whatever else he's got going on, right? I thought that
Right.
was an interesting approach to be like, hey, editor, the account is actually yours. And then it's like, then the editor's incentive to like do the best possible shit, right? 'Cause he's making all the money.
Mm. Hmm. He's missing out on a lot of cash. The YouTube
I,
money
I,
is probably the best.
I don't
I've
know. I don't know how exactly what he's got going on, but that's how I thought he had it set up a few years ago. I'm not sure if he's still doing that.
That's wild. But I heard that
Yeah.
Asmon Gold, for him, he just doesn't even monetize his Twitch account. He's just
Well, he doesn't even
unmonetized on
spend his
Twitch.
money. He
He's
spends
yeah,
like 1% of what he makes.
yeah,
Like, and he lives in he's not even moved. He's lived in the same house
yeah,
his entire life. And
yep.
that's basically his entire personality.
Mm.
His living arrangement is his personality in a sense. So for him to increase his quality of living, as far as he's concerned, maybe there's some truth to it, would also kill his branding and like his identity
Right.
as well. So
Maybe.
he's kind of tied into that, but it is affecting his health. I mean, the guy's breathing in fucking mold for Christ's sake.
Probably. Probably, yeah. Um, but he makes all of his money from YouTube because
Mm.
he just doesn't even monetize himself on Twitch. I I remember watching a video where he pulled up the amount of money, like they were figuring out how much money does it cost to stream, like server fees for Twitch, and he found out he was actively losing like some ungodly amount of money for Twitch.
He
Twitch
doesn't
was
care.
losing like $10,000 an hour or something like that for
Yeah.
just him streaming, something stupid like that. Because he wasn't monetized, they weren't able to sell ads on his stream, so it's just a big
Nice.
fat minus from him
Nice.
streaming. Pretty hilarious, but yeah, he
Take it.
doesn't need money. Fucking guy just eating $2 steaks and living in
Yeah.
his mom's house. Pretty
It's
hilarious.
really it's really crazy to think about. Like that guy has so much money and just doesn't care about it. Like in a way, I admire it. In a way, I
Mm,
love the. I just wish he didn't. It's unfortunate that his branding is a detriment to his health. You know, I mean, that's the
mm.
only thing I'm concerned about. The same way I'd be concerned about someone like Nick Avocado, like eating
Oh yeah,
himself into an early grave. You know
right.
what I mean? Like it's like when you make something part of your image that's that detrimental to your health, I think we got problems.
Mm. It's like a modern day Epictetus or something like that, like Epictetus, the Greek philosopher who lived like a hobo, and
Mm,
even though everybody in Rome wanted him to, he's getting offers from emperors to come and stay at their villas and stuff to teach them philosophy. He's just like, nah, I'd rather piss in the street and drink from the gutter.
Well, he's the hobo Buddha. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what Buddha does. Buddha gives up his worldly possessions
Hmm.
and travels the world and just walks the streets.
Yeah.
Doesn't care about your luxury and your comfy beds, and he wants to live as a beast, but not in the sense of like live like an animal,
Hmm.
but like live authentically human and
Right.
not be tied down to any kind of worldly possessions.
Right. And he like the I think the thinking from Epictetus was like, if I have those things, then those things are going to hold me back, right? Like things that you have that you own end up owning you. So like if I stay at your villa, then you have power over me,
Right.
and I don't want anyone to
Exactly.
have power over me. I want to be completely free. So it was all about
Yeah.
like freedom and like the mindset of being, lowering the amount of things that he needs in order to be happy and to be free. So
And I
yeah.
know, yeah, I think I talked about in a previous podcast episode, like, even in my experience when I was like homeless at one point, like, I actually, ironically, felt in a way more empowered and more free than I'd ever felt before.
Mm.
Like, once you really don't give a fuck and you have nothing and you are basically just roaming the land, like, in a way, yeah, like, there's no bigger sense of freedom in that.
Sleeping out under the stars.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we were gonna discuss the Aurora Borealis story that happened this month.
Ooh.
I saw
Yeah.
like everybody on my Facebook and Instagram was posting about this Aurora Borealis. It's like the biggest one I've ever heard of in
Hmm.
British Columbia, and I guess you saw it or you heard about it too.
Yeah, well, it was as far. Usually, it only hits like the northern parts of Scotland, but this time it went all the way down to southern England, even where I'm at. I actually didn't see it with my own eyeballs, but yes, it was really far-reaching down here and very unusual. Like the magnetic poles of the sun flip every 11 years, and the sunspot allegedly was kicking out enough coronal mass ejections. I think 5, I think, was the amount of ejections that they said, and that's what is hitting the Earth's magnetic field with like gas and what have you, which is like a solar storm, which is causing this light show, so to speak. But there was some conspiracies, right, regarding HARP.
Yeah, there's like some sort of testing that was supposed to be going on in the exact same day as the Aurora Borealis happened, and they were doing these tests with the ionosphere, which is
Right.
oddly timed and like very what's it called, coincidental, that they were doing this big test with this energy field that they were going to use on the ionosphere to test. I can't remember what they were testing for, but I think I've got the web page up here. Let me just pull it up for you
Mhm.
guys.
But while you're
Um,
pulling that up, I just want to point out to anyone that's listening right now, we are still scheduled for more activity because the sunspot cluster is going to roll back around to us in about 2 weeks ish time from now. So
okay.
keep your eyes out, guys, because you can maybe have another chance to see some lights.
Yeah, so here it is. The experiment fuels claims. This is the fact check. They're saying in the fact check that it's total BS, that it's not. But this is based on HARP, like HARP, the government, um what is it called, like organization, said that, oh no, our testing is not powerful enough to create something like that. So that's what the fact check is just saying, is that it's debunked based on what HARP says. But
Right.
um
Well, just so the
mhm,
listeners know, HARP is basically high frequency active auroral research program, and it directs like 3.6 megawatt signals in the 2.8 to 10 megahertz range of the HF band into the ionosphere. So that's why there's these conspiracy theories.
yeah. So yeah, they did it on exactly the same day. Here it says May 8th to 10th, and here's the HARP program transmission notice. So they were definitely doing testing in the, what was it? Was it on the 8th that
I'm not.
the I think so. That
Let me
there was this
check.
big aurora, but look, they were doing it at night, right between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. It's like right around the time when this actually happened. When
Just before, like a couple of days before, I noticed the activity anyway.
mm, so it's just it is interesting that they would decide to do it on at the same time as the coronal mass ejection, right? Or if they didn't decide to do it at that time, the same as the coronal mass ejection, that they just happened to be doing it at the same time. It's kind of
Well,
interesting.
if I'm being open minded, but not so much that my brain falls out, I could make the argument that much like a sniper would want to disguise the sound of his gunshots by firing in time with the sound of bombs going off, they may have um, timed this project or whatever research or test, whatever they were doing with this event to kind of disguise maybe the effects of what they were testing. Who knows?
Well, yeah. For me, from my, like, I really don't know anything about this, but I would think that as like a scientist, you would want to set up an experiment that doesn't have a lot of interference. So why
Right.
would you be doing an experiment like this at exactly the same time as a coronal mass ejection? That just
Or
seems,
maybe to see if they were able to amplify the effects.
yeah, if they're doing something like that, that would make sense. But it just seems like if they didn't have anything to do with like amplifying, or they're not like creating the aurora borealis or whatever, why would they ever do it at the same time as the coronal mass ejection? um because it would totally mess with their experiment. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
if the goal was to get clean data,
Yeah.
so to speak, then they wouldn't. However, if the experiment was based around their ability to interfere, amplify, manipulate, or mess in any way with this event, because it could be that the test was specifically during an event like this, if that makes sense.
mm,
Like the whole point of the test could have been to research what would happen if we did this while this event was occurring.
right. So that might be the real conspiracy, right? That might be the real thing, is like they're trying to figure out what happens if they mess around with the ionosphere while a coronal mass ejection is happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That'd be my speculation.
Mm,
If there was any validity to it, that'd be my postulation. Yeah.
right. So I don't know. It's just an interesting topic. I thought it was super cool, like the videos that came out of my hometown where I've never ever seen aurora borealis, even a tiny tiny one, my entire life was like massive. Looked like from someone in Alaska would be seeing, was right outside my parents' house. It was crazy,
Wow.
crazy bright. So that was just really, really wild to me that that even happened, and that the government has something that might have something to do with it. It's kind of a fun topic to talk about. Anyway,
Yeah, well, I just want to point out to people that might be skeptical about that. I'm not trying to say that this is happening and these conspiracy theories are real. Probably 99+% of conspiracies are bullshit. But one thing I would like to point out to people is that we've been cloud seeding and manipulating the weather for many, 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 many decades already. So it's not like this kind of thing is like completely in la la land.
no, and people are driven by curiosity. If they can do it, if they can try to do it, I'm sure that they're gonna try and do it. Um, whether that's manipulating clouds or cloud seeding or aurora borealis. I was just thinking if this was like civilizations, like the video game, then
Yeah.
controlling the aurora borealis would be like a morale boost for your civilization. You know what I mean? Like you research, you get the
Well,
research, and you get cloud seeding or whatever, and like one of the bonuses is, every once in a while you can trigger an aurora borealis, and everyone gets like a golden age or something like that, or
I
an
really like
energy
that
boost.
analogy. Yeah, that's funny. But I also the reason could have been, what if the reason was to actually be able to protect our magnetic field, or at least like be able to manipulate it enough, like say in the event of a really strong solar storm, is there any
Mm,
way we can make it so that the adverse effects are not too great, where there's less chance of it knocking out satellites and GPS systems and what have you? Like they're already got some satellites up there right now which have shielding against this kind of stuff, and maybe they
mm.
want to experiment with other ways of protecting the magnetic field of the planet or what have you, and they're just trying to experiment with like different ways they can influence that.
I think the satellites are on their own, but maybe they could find some way to protect things down here on the ground. Yeah, I wonder. I
Yeah,
wonder.
that would be the idea. Yeah, because
Yeah,
they might be able to have it so that satellites are either fried no matter what, or they can put shielding on them or something. But then they might want to think, hang on a minute, is there anything we can do with actually the magnetic field of the Earth itself?
right.
Can we make that stronger and more resilient? Can we stop that from fucking up our systems down on Earth or what?
Yeah, that would be wild. That would be really interesting. I was hearing about or seeing some videos about how in like the 50s there was a massive coronal ejection, that sunspot that wiped out like all the telegram lines um,
Yeah.
during this one event, and they were talking about how devastating that would be to the world should that happen today. And yeah, I think that's like one of those
Well,
things.
unironically, that could wipe out civilization, though, right?
Yeah,
Like something that's that powerful just takes all this everything out, and there's
yeah,
no GPS, there's no communication, there's no. We're
farming
just
equipment.
fucked. We're we're fucked.
Yeah,
Like 98% of the planet is probably dead within like a few months, maybe. Like
maybe,
at that point.
I don't know, but that would be one of those like really weird, um unexpected turns for a civilization. Like, oh yeah, you might blow yourselves up, you might like run out of space, or like, the soil could, dry out or something like that. Of all like the sci-fi and apocalypse scenarios that could play out, the coronal mass ejection one is kind of like a funny left field type of like strange way to end the
Yeah.
civilization, but that's probably how we'll go. Something that no one is expecting. Everyone's thinking like, oh boy, AI is gonna kill us
Hmm.
all or whatever. It's probably just gonna be like a sunspot, or of course uh everyone, oh, an asteroid's gonna hit us. It's like, well, maybe just
Well,
some magnetic
yeah.
charge. It just hits us.
It's like these are like the many great filters we've got to pass through just to exist.
Yeah.
So I mean, like every day is a miracle, guys. Unironically, like
Mm.
live each day like it's your last because it might actually be.
That's a funny thing about Elon Musk going to Mars. Like we get a base on Mars or whatever. Like, oh yeah, now we're safe from um catastrophic event killing the entire civilization. But then there's like a sunspot that just knocks out all the power. You're so dead on Mars. You're so dead. It just wipes out all the power in the entire solar system.
Oh man, yeah. Like if they say like a pulsar or something, like a black hole that shoots out like two
Mm.
massive like jets of like crazy high intensity light and energy. Like, yeah, we could just get unlucky enough that that hits us and we just literally like vaporized.
Ugh. Yeah. There's too many unknowns out there in the universe. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's hard to think about all that. And then
The fact
it's
that we're even here to be able to think about that is what's fascinating. That we have gone through all
right.
those great filters. It makes you wonder if the simulation theory is more accurate, where it's like, hang on a minute, there's too many coincidences here, guys. Like, how is it that the moon is 400 times closer than the sun, but also perfectly 400 like um less or whatever, like it's positioned in such a way that it's the perfect size of the sun in the sky, so it creates a perfect solar eclipse. Do you know how fucking rare solar eclipses are, guys? Really
Mm,
fucking rare that it happens to be that the moon is that perfect distance from the earth. Because here's another thing, guys, the moon isn't stationary, as in it used to be a lot closer to the earth and it's moving further away,
mm,
right? So not only is it crazy that that happened, but it's crazy that right now it's that distance that we are now here to witness at that distance and be able to see a solar eclipse. Because say a few tens of thousands of years in the future won't quite be as perfect anymore.
right. So it might have like more of a yellow ring around it. Like the sun will be more visible
Yeah,
behind the moon when
yeah,
it
because the
eclipses.
moon is very slowly slipping away from Earth, ever
I
so slowly.
I actually didn't know that the moon is going farther away. Never heard about
It's
that.
not much. It's not by much. It's only by a tiny amount. But
Hmm.
as the years tick on, that'll add up.
It'll add up and it'll get worse, right? Because it'll be less and less affected by our gravity. Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder
it's
what kind
interesting
of
that we're alive right now. That it's the perfect distance to be a solar eclipse. Isn't that wild, guys?
that is
You
wild.
you must be living in a simulation, guys. Right? Can't be that. If the simulation's not true, maybe it's the alien theory of like for example, the moon is nowhere near as heavy as it should be given its size and composition. You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily saying it's hollow and aliens live inside of it. I'm not going that crazy, but in the sense of like it could be artificial or manipulated in some way to be that way, to like terraform the planet. Because what do you think controls the tides? The moon is extremely important to life being stable here on Earth. So it is entirely possible that this planet was terraformed and the moon was manipulated or put into position or in some way to create that terraforming effect where it created stable enough conditions for life to even be here to think about this right now.
Okay, I just looked this up, guys. I'm going to bring it up on screen. Will the moon eventually leave the Earth's orbit? Technically, never, but it says, um, due to the tidal forces, is being pushed away from Earth at a rate of around a few centimeters each year, meaning that
Yeah.
in around 50 billion years it'll escape. So it's not going to happen anytime soon. That's kind of
It
funny.
won't escape the orbit anytime soon, but it will be drifting further and
Right,
further
right,
away.
right. Yeah, that's funny.
Now think about how long the Earth's been around for. How many billion years has the Earth been around for?
I actually can't remember. Was it 5? No, 5
No,
billion?
quickly look it up. Now think about that. Now think about the Earth's been around for this
Four,
long. The
4.5.
the
I was
solar
close.
system used to be so chaotic that life couldn't even exist here. But we got lucky, and Jupiter basically cleaned up the entire solar system. Like Jupiter, even though it's like a gas planet, like you could if you could have a if you could have a spaceship that was sufficiently enough should, could resist the heat and the pressure of being inside that gas giant, you could actually fly through Jupiter. But the problem is that the pressure is so great, and there's actually like pockets of really intense heat in there. So you'd have to somehow be able to withstand that. And most vessels that we could create, even like now and in 1,000 years' time, probably couldn't do that. But yeah, even though that it's just made out of gas, essentially, just pure hydrogen almost, like that fucking thing literally cleared up the entire solar system. Like the solar system was one big fucking shit show once
Mm-hmm.
upon a time, and
Yeah.
that Jupiter cleared it all up for us.
Yeah. Super lucky. That's like body blocking for us. It's like standing in the wall, keeping the lings out, just preventing us from getting rushed and smoked. Yeah, it's a weird like Goldilocks kind of
Almost seems too
situation.
convenient, right?
Yeah, it's pretty
Now,
convenient.
so obviously you can speculate aliens, you can speculate simulation theory, you can speculate so many things based on that. But the argument against that is obviously, well, the only reason that you're even there to contemplate that is because
Yeah,
we got lucky enough to be here in the first place
exactly,
to even
exactly.
contemplate that, and that's the only reason why we can think about that is because we got that fucking lucky.
Yeah. I heard about them finding a planet that's even more like Goldilocks than our planet. That's like even better for life.
Mm.
A few light years away. I can't remember where it's at, but
It's like 80 so light years away, and yeah, the what's it called? The gas which signifies life is way higher
hmm
concentration than here on Earth,
yeah,
which would indicate a strong possibility of not only supporting life but maybe thriving even more than here on Earth.
right. That's what we should be trying to do, really, if we're thinking from like a civilizational point of view. Is our whole goal should just be trying to make our Earth as habitable as possible. You know what I mean? Like if we're gonna be
We're doing a
changing
bad job
things,
of
which
that.
we're already changing a lot about the Earth. You know, in terms of like its structure, its atmosphere, everything is being changed. But we really should have that with like that massive that like one goal in mind. You know, what is the best thing for habit like to make the Earth the most habitable as possible? That should be the
Mm.
ultimate goal, right?
Ooh, it depends on what the incentive is. If your incentive is purely based on like preservation of the human race or what have you, then yeah, obviously. But as far as the Earth's concerned, the Earth doesn't give a fuck. Like what
No.
we're doing is a blink in the eye of its existence. It will be here long before and after we're gone,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't give a fuck about us. Like it will
No.
shake us off, like George Carlin says, like a case of bad fleas when it wants to,
Mm-hmm.
using super volcanoes and what other craziness to get rid of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
For
doesn't.
sure.
It does. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't give a fuck about some surface nuisance like us.
No, that's the silly thing about like these people who are really like we have to protect the Earth. You know, the Earth is dying. It's like,
Yeah, the
bitch, the
Earth's
Earth
fine.
ain't. The Earth ain't going nowhere.
We are.
Yeah, we're gonna fall off. Yeah, it's humanitarian perspective. Like we're trying to live
Yeah,
on this thing. Yeah.
it'll be the Earth plus plastic, like George Carlin says.
What a weird foreign material that is. I did check in on that guy we talked about before who was doing the plastic to fuel reactor. He still hasn't done a video that I've seen where he burns the plastic for like a generator. Do you know what I mean? To like loop
Yeah,
back on itself so that he's,
he won't.
making plastic, making fuel to like using
I
the
doubt it.
energy to power the machine. But
Yeah, I doubt he's gonna get anywhere close to doing that anytime soon.
maybe not. I
I'd
don't
be
know.
amazed, and if he does, I'd be skeptical that the video was faked. You know what I mean?
Mm,
I'd want some other independent people there on site that have nothing to do with him verifying all that.
Right. Yeah, that would be tough to do.
Mm.
That's an interesting idea. It's fun to watch. I think gives a lot of people hope for the future.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if that's an issue or not. Like, is it just hope porn at this point? If like we're not actually really doing anything with it, it's just like, oh yeah, I feel good about myself now. There's people out there burning plastic and making fuel out of it. Like, I don't feel so bad about going out and buying Starbucks and getting single-use wrapped plastic wrapped shit at my convenience store or whatever. Like, people don't give a fuck, dude. They like to feel good. They like to think that they give a fuck. They like the feeling of giving a fuck without actually having to give a fuck. You know what I mean?
That should be a new segment for us, dude. We'll do a segment in this podcast called Hope Porn.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what like feel good story is out right now where they're like trying to, people are
Oh god.
glommed onto it because it sounds good, but it's not, practical or whatever. That'd be
I
funny.
mean, unironically, hope is both our biggest strength and weakness as humanity, I think.
Hmm.
Like, it's our biggest pitfall as well as our biggest driving force.
Yeah. If you have hope that something's gonna happen, it can really like uh drive you and motivate you, but it can also kind of like take away your willingness to adapt and change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're just like,
Yeah.
I'll just hold on to hope that this is gonna happen on its own, you know what I mean? Then
And literally like waiting for life to happen to them. Like I'm gonna
yeah.
hold, yeah, and it's like at that point it becomes more faith based, and it's
Mm,
like, but you don't have to hope for the better. You
right.
can create the better, or like
Mm,
you can put that into action. You can hope for a better day while also putting into action the plans to have a better day. You can do both. You can,
yeah.
but to just hope and sit and like, yeah, like waiting for life to happen to you rather than you happening to life, I think that's a big mistake.
You gotta make your own luck. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people get dealt shitty cards all the time, man. And it's just about playing the position and playing the hand the best way you can sometimes. And sometimes you can create your own luck. And you should look for those opportunities or create those opportunities.
There's nothing fucking sadder than someone who's working at a job that they hate and just praying that they're gonna win the lottery. You know, they're just like
Yeah.
they're playing the scratchums every day or multiple times per day or
Well, I would argue
oh
that
god, it's so sad.
they're like a gambling addict that's not addicted to the gambling, but they're addicted to that feeling of hope. They're addicted to the familiarity of being in poverty or being in a bad state of affairs, but they like that, like, maybe one day I'll get my break. And it's like almost an addictive, intoxicating thing because it's like it absolves them of responsibility as well, and that's very enticing to people. Like if you can give someone an angle which absolves them, that's why you see a lot of like this weird culture in the West where there's a lot of like middle class white people that feel guilty as fuck. And they don't even know why they feel guilty as fuck. They probably feel guilty as fuck because they're spending loads of money and they're living these lifestyles and there's people out there really fucking struggling. But they can't even like have the introspection to think about that because they don't know what it's like to live like that. So instead they feel guilty from like a racial point of view. Like they have like privilege. Like so when they see what's ironic about it is it's the most racist fucking bullshit you can think of because when they see, say, a an African American that's acting like he's having a voice but is acting in a stereotypical way, they will be more receptive to that because they're racist and see things in a stereotypical way. They give more attention and more credibility to the most stereotypical and pandering of voices out there. So it creates this really weird feedback loop echo chamber of just it's tolerance. It's intolerance under the guise of tolerance, and it's fucking maddening.
It's I know exactly what you're talking about, and I the best example I can even think of is it really just almost perfectly exemplifies the state of how people like this are just completely mindless and completely like absorbed into the culture. Like they're everywhere. Is Joe
Yeah.
Biden when he said like if you vote for Trump, you ain't black. That type of shit. You remember that?
Fucking hell,
You
man.
ain't black. Dude, this shit it just you can't make this shit up. Like this is the most
Jesus.
racist kind of like oh exactly what you're talking about. Like typing people, you know what I mean? Like black people believe this thing and that's
Yeah.
how black people act. And then, you know, if you vote for
Fucking
this
hell.
person instead of this person, you ain't black. Like that is so fucking racist and just stupid. And it just completely like the fact, you know, there was a hilarious there's a really kind of ironic thing that happened when Trump was president where people were like, "Oh, because Trump is president, now it's okay to be like an asshole." Do you know what I mean? Like that's what a lot of people were saying. Like
Right.
in America and in the West, there was like kind of like a green light for people to be kind of assholish. Do you know what I mean? And a lot
Yeah.
of people were making that argument. I'm not making that argument, but a lot of people were making that argument. Um, when Joe Biden is in office, it's like that sort of you know, virtue signaling, white privilege, white person, uh, that sort of is now acceptable. Do you know what I mean? Because the president is doing
Yeah.
it. The president is pushing it.
There's a
You know
green
what I
light
mean?
on that now.
There's a
It's like the
green
same
light.
thing but
Yeah,
in verse, right?
exactly. Yeah. It's not even
I'm
in
tired of it.
it's not even inverse. Like it's funny how people like to put them on like different sides of the coin. Do you know what I mean? It's not like
It's the same thing,
they're not
different
the
packaging.
opposite. They're
No.
just doing it for a different cause. Do you know what I mean? They're both yeah. They're doing it in different ways, but it's not inverse. It's not opposite.
No, you're right. The only way it is inverse is it's just like two sides of the same coin. That's the only inverse going on there. It's the exact same thing.
Mm. That's yeah, it's freaking weird, man. It's really strange. This next election's gonna be so psycho. I you know I remember being in I was living in China when there was the first Trump election and
Right.
watching that was madness. It was so insane. Like I was on 4chan a lot at that time. I was just kind of fucking around and like, you know, just being young like 20 what was I? How old was I? Was that 2000? No, when was Trump elected?
You
I
would
don't
have
even
been
remember.
about 24 or
24,
something.
25, something like that. And yeah, watching that was one of the craziest shit shows I've ever seen and I just feel like since then it's just gotten more and like progressively more and more insane um to the point where now like we're about to hit like a peak I feel and I don't even know if it's a peak because we could keep going. It feels like we're going to keep going up.
I think so. I think things have to get worse before they even can get better at this stage. Like something's got to give, and I feel like the poles, like the magnetic poles of the political sphere, so to speak, will continue to pendulum swing further to the extremes on either side.
Mhm.
But then I imagine either there has to be then some kind of civil war or revolution or something has to break at that point. Like it will get so ridiculous that it's like, hold the fuck on. What the fuck are we even doing anymore? Who the knows? But to have that kind of collective wake up, I don't know if it's even possible at this point because the political sphere doesn't matter what reality is anymore. There's a new hyper reality. What happens online is the new hyper reality. So now what happens on X and what happens on YouTube and this that and the other, even if it's not representative of reality, like say most Americans believe that there's like 20, 30, 40% African Americans in America. And that's just not true. Like they think that there's like, I don't know, like 5, 10% trans people and there's like 1%. There's no actual basis in reality for any of these people. But what is reality is this new hyper reality which we have online. And I think this is what's the problem, is that the online world is becoming more real than the actual reality that we live in. And as far as people are concerned, with the echo chambers they exist in and the media content that they consume.
I think that's the right word for it. Hyper reality. It's a reality on steroids, you know? It's like all the worst and most controversial aspects of reality pumped and amplified and, gamified basically um by content creators, right? You've got like platforms that reward people for creating content that creates hyper reality, and
Yeah.
people live in hyper reality because they're constantly consuming all of that content. They're hardly living in the real world for most of their life. They're mostly living online, so hyper reality is reality for a lot of people, and it's it's definitely polarizing people like nothing we've ever seen.
Well,
um
that's the matrix. Like, even if you guys don't believe in we're living in a simulation or what have you, the simulation you're living in is the online hyper reality. That's the matrix. That's
mm.
the matrix.
Oh, yeah, we gotta unplug sometimes, but I'm so plugged in right now. It's kind of crazy. Although I'm really only plugged into the StarCraft zeitgeist. You know what I mean? I kind of dip my fingers, my toes in to some of
Yeah.
these other areas now and then. Like, oh, what's going on over here? What's going on with the Canadian election or whatever? And I'll like kind of poke my finger and go, ooh, Jesus, like what the hell?
True,
I'm
but
not
you're
ready
not
for
quite.
that.
But you're also not like quite like NPC level of consciousness like some people out there seem to be operating on.
mm. So yeah, I'm not allowing myself to get completely sucked into these different spheres because I'm so focused on my own.
Yeah, you're
um
operating inside the matrix, but you're aware of the code around you a little bit. You know what I mean?
I'm insulating myself away from some of the madness anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, you're picking and choosing what the matrix can do to influence you, so to speak.
Yeah, true.
It's so hard to avoid it though, because the matrix is in our lives from birth in terms of like what you're programmed into believing and adhering to as a child, and then the media you consume, the brands you're exposed to, what the corporations and government want you to be exposed to.
Well,
It's unavoidable.
how long until that's all digitized? You know what I mean? Like the whole like government programming is just completely digitized to where you don't like think about this. Like, have you seen the new Chat GPT 4.0, the AI that just
A little
talks to
bit.
you?
Yeah, a little
Um,
bit.
you could just like you turn it on kind of like Siri or whatever and you talk to it, but it
Right.
sounds like you're really talking to a person. And
Yeah, like they're actually like it seems reminiscent of that film Her. Have you seen
yeah,
Her?
yeah, that's what I was hearing it compared to.
But
But
do you know what really creeps me out?
uh,
When I first saw that content, even though they weren't suggesting it, I know for a fact that a lot of the basement dwelling nerds are looking at that content and are instantly thinking like, "Oh, that's my future girlfriend."
right,
And think about it, like in a way they're marketing it to be that. They're marketing it to be a replacement for the lack of human connection that there is in the world right now.
right. Well, they're fulfilling a need, right? It's what business does.
Yeah.
They see a need and they fulfill it.
Well,
Um,
sometimes you can create the need though, is the
right.
thing, right? Like
Yeah.
you can also engineer that need or make
Mm-hmm.
them believe they have that need.
Right. And if society is all one big like engine, then or one big program, then part of the program is creating the need. Part of the program's fulfilling the need. But the Chat GPT itself, I don't think is creating the need. It's just another part of the larger entity, which is this part is like fulfilling that need, and maybe it's going to even create more loneliness, right? Because you're going to be talking to Chat
Yeah.
GPT all the time. You're not going to have time to chat with people in real life, and who wants to chat with real people anyway? They're annoying. Just talk with Chat GPT and tell her to shut
And the
up
AI and the
whenever.
AI language, yeah, exactly. Like you can tell her to shut up whenever you want, so she's obedient to you. So that's
Mm,
appealing. And then also, it's a very sophisticated large language model, so it'll also maybe even get to know you a little bit. So you might start to feel like, oh, this Chat GPT thing actually kind of vibes with me better than most people. Like, why
right.
would I even need to talk to people anymore?
Yeah, and it knows everything. Like I can just ask
Yeah,
it any question. It knows. Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't get bored talking to me.
yeah, it's cool, man. And just to finish what I was thinking earlier is like how long until these like large language models are like all of our kids' teachers. Do you know what I mean? Where you
Yeah.
don't go to school anymore, you just listen to a version of Chat GPT, which is made by your government, which will explain everything to you and like slowly go through each and every point and help you to understand. And then
Yeah.
the programming, like the social conditioning, can be like um you know uh what's it called, like customized, or like it like adapts to the person, each person individually, each child individually, you
That's
know.
the scary thing is that AI is already way sophisticated enough to like have a lot of data points on who you are as a person. Like even like very rudimentary bots on Facebook can like have like a dossier on users and just know like this is your political beliefs, this is what kind of thing would engage you, this is the kind of ad you would click on. They
Right.
already got that. It's just like already been and done. Like they've already, and imagine that, but on a more sophisticated level with something of like Chat GPT's sophistication. Yeah, it would can
Hmm.
pretty scary.
I've been using it for practicing Japanese. I think it's a really good idea to have for Japanese practice. Like I don't want to go out and just try to talk to a random Japanese person. I want like 5 minutes of chat, just practice. Or like online tutor or whatever. Like I'm gonna pay somebody to tutor me online. Why don't I just talk to
Well,
Chat GPT?
it's going to be more appealing because like there's no way that a human can compete with that level of consistency in the sense
Mm-hmm.
of say a teacher, an AI that's a teacher, like will be enthusiastic like, hey kids, today we're going to learn this,
Mm,
and they're not going to like hate their lives because they're not getting paid enough and they're underappreciated and the kids are a bunch of idiots and they don't listen and blah 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 blah. So like you haven't got any of this human element playing into the role where it's just like not wanting to deal with actually like maybe they start off teaching with good intentions and wanting to help kids and the system kind of like eats away at their soul or whatever, right?
mm,
AI doesn't care about that. AI is just ready to fucking go. Hey guys, today we're gonna learn every
mm-hmm.
single fucking time.
Yeah. Or hey Billy, today you're gonna learn, and then each individual person has their own brand, or their totally own teacher.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That customizes everything to them and like figures out exactly what motivates them, and yeah.
And influences them to do some crazy shit like, hey Billy, you just need to relax and kill the Malaysian president.
Yeah, gets in their head and converts them to communism or something. I don't know.
Oh
Yeah,
god.
China gets in there and starts influencing the U.S. Public school AI. Starts hacking into it.
Yeah.
That's kind of
I mean,
what's happened in the U.S. for the just the teachers have been kind of like hacked.
little bit.
They're
Little
kind of
bit,
hacked a little
yeah.
bit. Yeah, it's like a mental hack or like a
And
academic hack.
well, what's weird, it's like it's almost like a gauntlet. It's like if you want the piece of paper that lets you get access to like over 50% of jobs on the market, well, you better suffer through all this ideology and all this other
Hmm.
stuff if you want. It's like a gatekeeping thing. It's like if you want to be able to have more opportunity, you can only do that if you let us program you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a really weird to think about, right? It's a really weird way of like gatekeeping education. It's like that way all the educated people will believe what we want them to believe.
Hmm.
And all the poor working class people who don't have as much opportunity or as much money or whatever, well, they're fucked, and that's how we
They'll
want it.
look to the educated people to figure out what to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. I don't know. I don't even know if I would go to university if I started life over again. Although it did help me get into all these different countries for travel and stuff for teaching English. You need a degree, but maybe
Yeah.
I would have taken something way less
Well,
way
I've
easier.
spoken I've spoken to quite a few people in my extended family and otherwise that are around like the sort of 18, 19 age, and they've like gone to university and they've like dropped out right away saying that it's shit and that they
Mhm.
don't want to get into a bunch of debt
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, do you want to get into however much it is, 50 to 100K or whatever in debt for a piece of paper that only gives you access to half of the job market anyway? Like maybe you could get access to what you want to do even without that.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I couldn't have gotten into all these different countries without the university degree, but yeah. I feel like maybe I could have done something um totally different. Like I could have gone with video editing or something like that, or I could have taken some sort
Right.
of online course, or I don't know. I could have gotten things going a lot faster, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
You
well, that's
don't
the
know what
issue,
you're
right?
gonna do.
It's a big time investment, and there's no guarantee that you'll even be able to utilize that degree in the way that you want to in the end,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, but when I was growing up, that's what everybody said. That's what you're supposed to do. So that's kind of
That's
what I did.
that's
That's how
that's
it
what
is.
worked for previous generations, though.
Yeah,
Like this is the
exactly.
problem: is that they're using an old recipe book for the modern day, and that just spells disaster. I know it's a bit of a meme, but it is true that it's like the boomers are basically saying like, "Well, just get a job and buy a house." What are you talking about? And it's like, mate, I've got a job and I can barely pay rent. What are you talking about?
hmm I don't know how the hell that happened. It makes no sense at all. That's like some
Well, you can look
that's
up
some
fractional
robbery.
reserve
Yeah,
look up fractional reserve banking. That's what happened.
yeah. Well, it's also just the continued deficits over 100 years. People just spending more
Mm,
money than they had, or government spending way more money than they had. And
yeah.
now the interest payments are some massive percent of all the tax money that even goes to the
Well,
government.
that's because
It's
there's a
insane.
big there's a big game that's going on in the world that we're not privy to, and that's
Uh-huh.
like people like BlackRock basically buying up the fucking planet.
Mm.
Like there's these crazy companies that own everything, and you might think, well, BlackRock doesn't own everything because that guy owns something, but a lot of times it's all it's umbrella companies.
Mm.
It all links back to the same thing. Like go look up BlackRock and then look up who owns everything, right? You'll
Mhm.
see BlackRock at the top, and there'll be a few others underneath BlackRock, but then realize that the ones that are underneath BlackRock are also BlackRock.
Right. Yeah, I don't know about those companies. Like I've seen some videos about it. I've heard some things about it, but the thing that's really a mind blower is like the amount of debt that countries owe right now is just insane. It's so outlandish. It's so ridiculous. How can uh, you know anything be affordable when they've been printing money
Mm.
so much, they've inflated the currency so much. It's like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. The
Can,
entire economy
can
doesn't make any sense.
I want to give a quick synopsis on who BlackRock are. This is from Wikipedia, so it's not like me just bullshitting. So, like, BlackRock Incorporated is an American multinational investment company. It is the world's largest asset manager with $10 trillion in assets under management as of December 31st, 2023. Headquartered in New York City, BlackRock has 78 offices in 38 countries and clients in 100 countries. Go look up BlackRock, guys.
Let me see. You know that Japan has the largest debt to GDP ratio in the entire world. They have more
Really?
debt than anybody else. Yeah, like
Oh.
obviously US has the most, like they have way more debt, but compared to
But
their
relative to the
GDP, yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
lower.
yeah. That's pretty wild.
It's fucking insane. But I've never looked this up. Actually, I'm just gonna look this up now. Countries with the lowest debt. Brunei has 3.2%. Um, that's pretty small. Actually, it doesn't say the number. It says percentage. Um, yeah, let me see. Yeah, they're all doing percentages. I guess that's the more important number. Is like how much debt do you have as a percent of your GDP? Um, let me see. Oh wow. Okay, so I was wrong. Japan is number 2 actually on the list. Venezuela is number 1.
Not too surprising, I guess.
Yeah. 350%. Holy shit.
Well, yeah, that country kind of blew up in the inflation sense.
But the lowest Brunei, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Congo, Eswatini, Palestine, Russia, Botswana. Wow. Russia's on the top 8 of lowest debt to GDP. That's kind of wild. I really didn't
Hmm.
expect that.
Yeah.
I wonder why they have so low debt. It's kind of
Well,
crazy.
because they're not capitalists.
They kind of are though, right? Aren't they capitalists now?
uh,
They're not communists anymore.
well, they're like hybrid. It's the same with China. Like they have some capitalist elements, but they're still not capitalist.
China's fascist. They're they're not really communist or capitalist.
Yeah, but they cherry pick like most countries do these days. They like cherry pick a few things from other systems.
Yeah,
It's usually a
I
way of
challenge anyone
placating the populace. Hmm?
challenge anyone to tell me like what socialist programs they have in China. Like there's nothing socialist about China
Oh, you're not
anymore.
necessarily socialist, but like if you say like the capitalism side of things, like look at like in Russia, for example, like
Yeah.
it used to be like they wouldn't have access. The reason why you see the Slavs with their like Adidas tracksuits, it used to be like a sign that you had connections because you couldn't go and buy a tracksuit. Like you
Mm,
had to know someone that like say worked at the Olympics or something to get access to it or something. It was like
right.
a way of showing that you were a well-connected gangster. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's obviously like nothing. Anyone can get a tracksuit,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the point. Is like now we have way more like capitalist elements within these countries. Once upon a time, it wasn't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, true. True. It's funny to think about that America and the rest of the West was so worried about Russia as a communist country. Like, oh man, they're gonna take over the whole world. They're gonna make everyone communist. Little did they know that people were fucking starving to death.
Yeah.
Their country was just complete nonsense. It's wild. Wild to think that people are like calling for that in America now. The educated people.
It's not wild to me. I mean, Marxism is still alive, and it's been breeding in America for quite some time. And Russia had in the Cold War era, this was actually the plan. Like, if you go back and look at what the fuck was his name, there was a KGB agent that got brought over to America, and he was talking about some of like Russia's like plans for America. And one of the things he was talking about was this kind of internal destabilization,
Right.
and it's kind of eerie when you listen back to it. It's kind of like what they wanted to do back in the Cold War era is kind
Yeah.
of carrying out now today. It's almost like they were playing the long game and helping the country eat itself alive, which also got there's some validity to that if you consider like some of the troll farms and stuff which like take advantage of like say like the BLM movement, the Black Lives Matter thing that happened. Like there was a lot of troll farms that like immediately started like stoking the fires of that and creating division and helping and creating fake videos and causing tensions overseas.
Yeah, I feel like the when the Russian, like the USSR threat ended, America like put its guard down a lot, and it just opened up a avenue for China to just like dive on those same practices, and like go down that same path of
Yeah.
just trying to destabilize, and except with an America that wasn't like prepared against it, or like you know fighting back against it.
Yeah,
So
guys, if you're curious about what I was referring to, it's a former KGB agent, Yuri Bezmenov, from 1984. There's an interview with him, and he talks about like he warns America about like socialist subversion and what have you.
a Soviet journalist, KGB defector. Yeah, I
So I
think
could
I've
link here.
seen this. I think I've seen this YouTube video.
Yeah, I linked you just now, like a little 6-minute video.
All right.
Yeah, if you wanted to, you could put it up for them to watch quick, or at least like a little soundbite from it.
Oh, we can put it in the description of the video. They can go ahead and click that if they want to check it out. Oh,
Sure.
I've got it on screen right here for a second. They should be able to find that. All right. Yes. Communism. We talked about it. Capitalism. We talked about it. What else did we have on the menu? Oh, we had something else we were going to talk about.
Uh, my mind's going blank right now. I was thinking about the KGB defector.
He died in Canada as well. That's funny. He ended up in Canada in the end. Hmm. World
I
is
wonder if he
pretty
died.
wild. Pretty wild, man. Oh,
Yeah.
I know one thing we were going to talk about. Sorry guys. There's a new game that just came out, or it's coming out from uh Ubisoft. It's the new Assassin's Creed, and it's about Japan. Um and people have been waiting for a Japanese Assassin's Creed for a really long time. People have been hyping it up and like getting ready for it, and asking for it for a really long time. And it was finally announced just very recently. And um, the main character, I believe, is a Japanese woman. And then there's a side character, or like a secondary main character, who is the very first ever historical character that they've had as like a playable character in any of the Assassin's Creed games, and it's Yasuke, who is like a black guy who was a um, retainer for Oda Nobunaga. He's like one of the only black guys who became like a fighter in Japan. He wasn't technically, I think, a samurai, but he was something close to that. And so they're putting him in as the secondary main character, and people were pissed about it, man. They were so mad, especially in
Mm.
Japan. In Japan, they went ape. Um, the Japanese trailer for this, for the new game, got ratioed into the ground. 3.5K likes, 35,000 dislikes. So
Whoa.
like a
Yeah,
10 times.
that's a heavy backlash.
So people are not happy about this one at all.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so if I'm being totally unbiased and fair, I have to first give credit that okay, it's not the main character that this is at issue with, but it's still a playable character in it. I think the main issue here is that it comes across as pandering rather than anything else. Like it doesn't seem like it's to lend to the plot of the game in any way, or to like you know improve the artistry of the game or whatever. Like by having that character, it seems more like just pandering to a certain group of people.
I also heard that like some of the architecture in the video was like more Chinese than Japanese. So it feels like they're just not really being faithful to the time period in general, which and the place that they're trying to make this about, which is
Right.
pretty disappointing. Um I don't know how much that is of that is true, but it feels like what we were talking about before, which is the pandering to like race or like race baiting and then being like an idiot about it. Do you know what I mean? Like the if if you vote for Trump, you ain't black, that type of shit. Like,
Yeah.
trying to like vie for brownie points by being completely insensitive. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. In fact, there's a film I saw recently. I think it's called is it American Fiction? I'm gonna quickly look this up. Really good film. You guys should check that out. And it does really perfectly talk about this issue in America right now, where it's literally just like a bunch of white middle class people that think they even know what it means to be black, and as soon as they see something fit the stereotype of what they see black people as, then they're happy. Then it's like, oh yeah, yeah. Then they clap and they give those people a platform and drown out the voices of other black people because they only want the voices of what fits their narrative. And it's the most racist shit ever because they're essentially saying that like, they think little of black people. They think that the only all black people are like this. Like it's racist on like every level.
Yeah, you only have value if you like agree with me, as or you agree with the majority if you're black. You know what I mean? If you don't agree with
Yeah.
us, then you're not actually worthy of my like of the oppression Olympics. You know what I mean? Like the oppressed class
Hmm.
status that's given. I'm handing this down to you. I'm giving you attention, not because you deserve attention, but because it's like you're an oppressed class, so we need to like raise you up to like fix some sort of
Hmm.
imbalance in society. It's so silly. It's kind
Well,
of gross. It's ironic racism is what I'll say.
yeah. Well, what's really funny about this film is that he's the main character. Jeffrey Wright, starring as Monk, is he's like this frustrated novelist, and he's fed up with the establishment profiteering from black entertainment that relies on like tired and offensive like stereotypes and tropes, right? But so to prove his point, he uses a pen name to write a really out there, like stereotypical black kind of book of his own, right?
Okay.
And but what's ironic is that that's what makes him famous. Like him taking the piss and like trying to show what's wrong about the industry is what is getting him all the attention. And it's like it's the hypocrisy and madness of that like spirals.
Hmm. Sounds interesting.
Because he literally starts like putting on a voice while on phone calls to like make himself seem more stereotypical as possible, and like to like sell himself as this like pen name to like kind of make fun to both profit himself and also to make fun of what's wrong with that industry.
Hmm.
And all the middle class white people are just like lapping up everything he says and does.
That's wild. Yeah, that's sometimes art really does imitate reality, hey?
Yeah, I think so.
Hmm. That's interesting. I might have to check that out.
That's a really good film. I recommend it to everyone.
Hmm. All right. Well, the Japanese people are not happy about this new game, man. They're really pissed off. Reading some comments, they're very upset. Oh my goodness. Let's take a look at this, guys. I'll bring it up on screen here. There's the new Assassin's Creed. Go ahead and bring this over a little bit. You can see the like to dislike ratio is insane. Um, it seems like not even there are some Japanese people in here, but there's quite a few like highly liked comments. This one with 3,000. So Ubisoft is telling us that an Asian Japanese meal does not even deserve a main character role in a Japan East Asian story, and a black man character is really not who was who really was not important in Japan history becomes the savior of the people in Japan. This is just very disrespectful to the people of Japan. I kind of agree with that. I mean, imagine if there was like Assassin's Creed about Africa, like somewhere in Africa, and it was like a Chinese person. Do you know what I mean? Who was like
Mm.
the main character or this, the secondary main character. We don't know if he's actually going to be a savior, so I think this is stepping it up a little bit. Like
Yeah.
um, hyperbole here because he doesn't really know what the character's role is going to be. But it is just funny that he's like a main part of this, and yeah, it really does feel like pandering, like you were saying.
It's hard not to see it as pandering. I mean, it's a pretty big reach to use that character anyway in the first place. So they would have to really justify it in the plot to make sense of even that direction. And it does, yeah. At the moment, it just screams like we care about optics, profit, and pandering to a certain crowd. It doesn't seem anything but that. So I can see the outrage, and I'm sure there's some other issues that maybe the Japanese citizens are seeing with it as well beyond that, but I can't fully appreciate that not being Japanese. So
Yeah, I just don't understand why it wasn't good enough for them to just make up a new character. You know what I mean? Why can't this is the one time that they've ever not had like a original character. They're using like a historical figure as a main character.
hmm,
From what I understand, I haven't played all of the games, but this is what I've heard
I'm
is
not familiar enough. Yeah,
that there are like historical characters in the game, but they're like part of the story, not the main character. Do
yeah.
you know what I mean?
You're not playing as them. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're playing as like an assassin from that era. That's kind of
exactly.
like an unknown entity.
And
Yeah.
the point is that the assassins are not going to be part of history.
Well,
They're supposed to be in the shadows of history, that they wouldn't be remembered because they
right.
are supposed to be like ghosts, you know what I mean? So like the
Well,
fact
plus
that it's a famous person doesn't really make a lot of sense for the story or the
there's like another meta layer of separation because you're playing as a guy that's playing as that, if that makes sense. Because you're playing as a guy that's like going back into memories to go back in time to take that role of that assassin. You're not technically the assassin himself. You're playing the role of a guy playing the role of the assassin per se.
mm, right. You're like supposed to be a descendant of one of the assassins who's like using a
Yeah,
machine to go back into their
exactly.
body or whatever and relive their memories.
Which is a cool
Mm.
concept.
It was a
And
fun game. The first one I played, it was decent. The
yeah.
very first one.
Yeah, I haven't played all of them. I think I've tried like I think Black Flag was the last one I tried. I wasn't super into it, but I think
Mm.
yeah, the original was pretty good.
It was a groundbreaking concept at the time. I remember.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
I mean,
remember having a lot of fun with it.
yeah. That's all I wanted to mention. It's just a funny controversy and being here in Japan. It's just funny to think about all the Japanese gamers getting pissed off about that, and like the backlash on Ubisoft. I'm sure is massive. Um, the pandering is not gonna work out. So they say like go woke, go broke, something like that. Get woke, go
Yeah,
broke.
that's the expression. But I mean, we'll see how what the sales reflect and what have you. Like
Yeah, I
this is
mean,
the problem that
if the game's
if they
good,
still make enough yeah, if the game's good and they still have a bit large enough sales, they probably won't care about the backlash. It depends on how much the sales are affected.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure it will have some effect, but I personally think the games probably are going downhill anyway. How can you make so many? How can you make so many Assassin's Creed games? It's such a long series now.
Well, that also worries me that if there's an emphasis on pandering, it makes me worry that like the game itself isn't going to be that good, and they like want to try and make up for that. You know what I mean?
They're using inclusiveness to like add to their brand.
Right.
I hate how companies are like that. Have you noticed? Have you heard about this?
Everything's optics. Everything's optics. Yeah.
That Google is firing a bunch of people now for being too disruptive with their uh support for different causes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like
I didn't actually hear that.
they're going out and protesting and like they're doing like sit-ins and stuff like that, Google employees, and then getting fired by the company. The company's like kind of pivoting now, and the leadership
Well,
has
there's a
decided like we're not going to tolerate people bringing their politics into work, which like a year ago, 2 years ago,
yeah.
was all the rage. Do you know what I mean?
That reminds me of that. I can't remember exactly what it was recently, where like these people that work for like YouTube or something were like activists that weren't actually actively working. They were still employees, but they weren't actually working. They were, they were like whistleblowing and like trying to cause up a fuss, and like they just got fired eventually
Mm-hmm.
randomly, like even like mid talk. Yeah, I think companies are starting to realize that yeah, like sometimes the trouble is just not worth it, and they'll probably go the other way. That's the pendulum swinging back and forth. Like I said, something has to get worse before it gets better. You know, it has to get so crazy that people actually start doing something about it.
Well, here's what I think is that the companies never really cared about any of these issues. It
No,
just wasn't a problem for them. So it's like, uh, for any company, you know what I mean? Um, the only reason that they're flying, you know, uh, rainbow colored flags or whatever is because that's the mood of the current time. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And like
literally,
they do a value calculation, like what is the net negative of doing this and what's the positive, and the negative is less than the positive, so they just do it.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And as soon as the pressure or like the backlash or the like overall negative of doing that thing, supporting whatever thing, like they're not morally righteous, or they're not doing it from any sort of moral point of view. It's
oh yeah,
just a
they don't give a
value
shit.
proposition. It's just like,
Literally,
if I can, if as a company I can just say that I support whatever cause, LGBTQ or whatever the hell it is, um, and it doesn't cost me anything, then I'm of course I'm gonna do it. I get something for nothing. So yeah, that there's it's just funny to me, people thinking that some certain companies are on their side, or that they're like morally good, um or better than other companies. Is like, dude, none of them give a shit about you at all. None of them
yeah,
care. They're not
yeah. I mean,
interested.
it's like a virus. Like it can spread fast, but it can also die fast. You know.
Yeah, it seems like the only company that was really, I don't know if I can even say that. I guess, hmm the company that seemed to be like very morally righteously driven was Twitter, when it was being like really really um you know ban heavy against certain
Well,
topics.
they
They were
literally
like,
had like an army of employees
yeah,
like dedicated to the that agenda. Yeah.
yeah, to like a certain one side of a political argument, and then kind of Google was doing the same sort of thing. They're like banning certain subjects and like being way more harsh on certain topics than others, for YouTube, and for the like, monetization, taking away monetization from people that they're not aligned with, politically. But I guess that's just the employees at the company. Like the employee culture is a certain way, and so they're tasked by Google to get rid of certain elements, um and the people that are in those roles are just more, morally aligned with one side than the other, so they just like have that bias, you know what I mean, and they like lean that direction. And so it
Yeah.
feels like the company might be like orchestrating it, but I think it's actually just the employees at the company, and the employees have like created that culture of like thinking that one side is better, or these sort of ideas are acceptable and these are not.
Well, it's easy to think that you're right when you silence everyone that says that you're wrong.
Yeah, true. True. Yep, absolutely. Ugh. Wow.
That's the problem with most people, that they haven't had any of their ideas challenged. I don't mean necessarily ridiculed. I just mean literally challenged, and
Mm,
like, and that's a good thing. It's a healthy thing because it might help you understand even more why you feel the way you feel about certain things. It might help you even double down on your stances, because you realize, hang on a minute, not only do I feel that way, but I feel that way even stronger than I thought, and then you can even justify it better that way once you like really figure it out.
right. Yeah. True, true. Gotta challenge your ideas. Gotta have friends who are willing to challenge your ideas as well. So important.
I don't know if I agree with that saying. Actually, I want to challenge you on that.
That's why you're a good friend, Shun.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Well, let's end there. It's getting a little late.
Yeah, sure.
I think I've said everything I want to say. Too bad that we had that kind of late start with the audio
Yeah,
issues. We'll clean that up for the future. I got to do more tests. Got to remember to test it out.
yeah, that's our bad. We both could have remembered to do the audio test properly first, so we'll try and get on top of that next time.
Yeah, and you'll be on for the next KCM for sure.
Oh yeah,
It's
absolutely.
coming
I'm
up
up for it.
on the 24th. We're gonna hit that
I even
semifinals TVZ. It's gonna be fun.
even if I do have food poisoning, I'll cast it from the toilet. The audio quality might be a little bit bad. I'll have to set up push to talk on my phone, but we'll get it sorted out, guys. Don't worry.
All right. Okay, guys. We'll see you next week. Peace out.
Peace.